Can you please confirm? Can you see my screen and can you hear me well? Yeah. Okay. So traditional architecture of normal database would be like this, right? So you have a client and then you have your EC2, that meaning your load balancer API layer. On top of it, it will be connected to the database layer. Usually we'll have this kind of setup will be there for your RDBMS databases. The one which we have till now learned, right? This RDS and all, those are all RDBMS databases, correct? So they have the SQL query language in order to connect and then get the data. So did you work on any simple SQL queries? I think developers might be have yeah. Most of you guys at least know few queries, right? Select star from the table, select particular column, and then retrieve the data. Yes or no? Hmm? So in this RDBMS databases, you have a strong requirements like how the data should be modeled. Correct. So you need to create a tables, you need to create rows, columns. Remember, we worked on joins, indexes, inner queries, subqueries, inner joins, outer joins, etc., etc. So many things, right? So we'll have multiple tables and all are relational, and then we'll get retrieve the data from different tables. Correct. And you have a strong, you can do aggregations, you can do computations, right? So much of things. You can write complex queries also to retrieve the data from the tables, right? So now how to increase the performance? Okay, if I ask you a question, guys, Facebook, Amazon, Google, all these big giant companies, do you agree if they are using MS SQL as an immediate database in the backend? Do you agree? Obviously no, because this RDBMS database, like, you can use it certain up to certain limit. Okay, so this RDBMS is not meant for super fast response. So until certain limit you can use it. Later they found, like, the huge amount of data that they have, this RDBMS could not able to fetch the data as, like, as very fast. For that reason, and also if you want to increase the performance, how do we do, guys? We do the vertical scaling, no, in databases. Yes or no? Vertical scaling meaning we'll do the scalability, right? So, and read replicas also maximum, how many we can have on RDBMS in RDS? Maximum 5, right? Or you can increase the capacity of the server from 16 GB to 32 to 64, like this. You need to keep on increasing. You need to do the scalability, correct? Is that cheap? Isn't it that expensive, guys? Doing this vertical scaling? Doing the vertical scaling, isn't it an expensive task? Yes or no? Correct. So for that reason, people came up with this concept called NoSQL database, where as you could not able to scale up and the process is expensive, so they have an alternative solution for this, that instead of doing scale up, they are now doing for scaling out. So instead of increasing the capacity of the server, they're now doing increasing the number of servers, means scale out concept. See, this NoSQL database is mostly on the scale out concept, not scale up concept. We'll not go very deep into this NoSQL concepts, but at least few information. Like, NoSQL meaning not only SQL, and this is purely non-relational databases. Guys, can you tell me, is it possible to create a table in RDBMS without proper strategy? Is it possible? No. You need to, well in advance, you need to structure it, correct? Well in advance, you need to know what are the columns, what are the data types you have, what are the, like, everything should be properly, you to analyze, and then you need to create a table, correct? And then let's imagine you have lots of data inside it. Is it possible to add a new column? in the RDBMS? That is also your problem, correct? So these are all relational. But whereas in NoSQL, here it is non-relational because there is no fixed schemas here, guys. There are no fixed columns. Especially in DynamoDB, guys, there are so many NoSQL databases in the market, like MongoDB, Cassandra, right? You have so many things, correct? But especially this AWS is also giving a NoSQL database called DynamoDB. So this DynamoDB is used for to achieve millisecond latencies. What is that? Millisecond low latency. Not even 1 second, it's milliseconds latency can be achieved using this DynamoDB. And everything is here non-relational. Guys, in DynamoDB also, there is no concept of like RDS. We used to go and create a DB instance, no? Yes or no, guys? In RDS, we used to go and create a DB instance, correct? In RDS, we go and create a DB instance. You create a DB instance, you set it up, everything. But here, guys, in DynamoDB, there is no instance. Directly, you need to create a table. What is that? Directly, you need to create a table. There is no concept of instance here in DynamoDB. If you go to DynamoDB, there is only one thing that you can see that is called create table. That's it. And unlike this RDS, in RDS, you need to create so many, like, you need to properly structure and create columns and all. But here in DynamoDB, guys, you can create a table with only with one column name. That's it. Later, you can add how manyver you want. You can add later after creating the table. In DynamoDB, you need to create a table with, you can start the table creating with one column. Is that possible in RDBMS? Is that possible in RDBMS, in RDS? No. But here in DynamoDB, you can start your table with only one column. Later you can add. And remember, this in DynamoDB, it doesn't support joins and complex queries. No. Aggregations, all these things will not be supported. DynamoDB is used for faster response. Getting it? These are all the few differences between relational and non-relational. SQL is relational and this is non-relational, NoSQL, right? And then all structured data can be stored in tables, whereas in NoSQL, using JSON data, unstructured data can be stored. So all in DynamoDB, everything is stored in JSON. This is a certification question, guys. The data in the DynamoDB is stored in which format? JSON format. And here your schemas are static. That meaning once you create a column, is it possible to change, modify? Nothing. Here the schemas are dynamic. Once the table got created, anytime you can go and add the columns. And design. This is in RDBMS. You can design complex queries, but here there is no interface to prepare the complex queries. If you want to retrieve the data using complex queries, then there is no room for in NoSQL. You have to go for SQL, the relational only. But this NoSQL is mostly used for performance. Okay. Here we call it as table, rows, and columns. Here we call it as collections and documents. Few examples are, very well. For NoSQL, MongoDB, Bigtable, Redis. Redis, remember Elasticcache, we have used Redis, right? Redis also uses a NoSQL concept. RavenDB, right? Cassandra, HBase, Neo4j, CouchDB, all these things basically comes under NoSQL databases. In NoSQL also, guys, there are different types here. So we have columnar database, we have graph database, we have document database, we have a key value database. So based on the developer's requirement, developer will be choosing whether they want to go with columnar, graph, document, and key value. Remember, please write down this DynamoDB supports document as well as key value, both. Few examples here, right? Your Redis will be with the key value pair. Document database meaning, for example, your MongoDB, CouchDB, OrientDB, RavenDB, all these things they will use document-based databases. Columnar database meaning all your big data will go to the columnar databases. So this Neo4j, FlogDB, all these things will go with the graph databases. There are different types of databases based on the requirement. The developers will be selected. So the main difference between DynamoDB and RDS is, you know very well, RDS is relational RDBMS database. Guys, if you want to increase the performance in RDS, what are the options you have? In order to increase the performance in RDS, what are the options you have? Read replicas is one option, and right, read replica is one option, and one is bigger instance, correct? So you can increase the capacity of the instance. If you want to increase the capacity of the instance, you need to take the downtime. Yes, and how many read replicas? Maximum 5 read replicas you can use it. But here that will take little bit time. So whereas in DynamoDB, it offers push button scaling. What is that, Chiti? Push button scaling. Push button scaling meaning, guys, you can increase the performance of your database on fly without any downtime. Push button scaling. So here there are few numbers. I will talk on that. If you enter those numbers, if you increase the numbers, automatically the performance of the DynamoDB will get increased. So there is no downtime because there is no instance, no, first of all. So there is no downtime required. On fly, you can increase the performance. You can scale. And as I said, there is no server or no instance. DynamoDB is serverless. You're getting it, guys? You're getting it slowly on DynamoDB? Good. I don't like to go with this. So on the PPTs, so it is fully managed. It's completely managed by AWS. It's a non-relational. It takes massive workloads and also millions of requests per second, trillions of rows, hundreds of terabytes of storage. It's huge. It's huge. Okay. And fast and consistent in performance. There is no difference will be performance, and you will have a millisecond latency on the retrievals. And it uses SSD storage in the backend. And also, there are two types of reads here. Guys, we are talking about basically for the database, what we do, we read and we write, correct? For the databases, we read and we write. Correct? Yeah. Yes. In reads, there are two types of reads. What are those? Eventual consistency reads, strongly consistency reads. That meaning ECR and SCR. What is that? Write down. ECR and SCR. ECR and SCR. I'll talk about this in coming few minutes. So in shortcut, in reads, there are two types of reads. We call it as ECR and SCR. Keep that in mind. We'll talk. So those who don't know anything on the databases, I'll just quickly give you few information. So guys, whenever in our academics, if you want to create a table, what is the example table that we always try to create? What is the table name that we always take it? employee table, correct? So let us take that employee table again here. Employee table. So okay, what are the okay, tell me what are the columns that we have? EMP number, name, phone, salary, that's a department. So we can keep on writing it, the number of columns, but I'm just giving an example. So what are the things that we have written? We call it as columns, correct? Everyone knows this. So these are called columns. So these are called columns. Columns. Okay, so now we go and write rows, correct? Employee number, let's say 1000. Who is the employee number here? Sri Vidya. Okay, Sri Vidya, and that is not the phone number. Don't call her. That's a random number. Let's say 20 lakhs package, and department is, let's say, IT or some. And 1001. Who is next lucky guy? Suresh. So Suresh number is blah 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 like this, and 50 lakhs. So DevOps. Next, 1002. Varun. So let's put the number, blah blah number, and 40 lakhs. He's an admin. And we have 1003. What is that? Sai. So many numbers. So 50 lakhs and AWS. Okay. What are the things that we have written here? Those are called rows, correct? These are rows. These are rows. So guys, here in DynamoDB, the columns we call it as attributes. What do you call? Attributes. And the rows we call it as items. Right? Attributes and items. So can we call a table is a collection of, table meaning it's a collection of attributes plus items? Yes. A table is a collection of attributes and items. You're getting it? So simply here in DynamoDB, columns are called attributes and rows are called items today. Okay. And here primary key. So we have a primary key. What is a primary key? What's the primary key? So primary key, the value should be always unique and not null, correct? So to which column we can assign a primary key here? We can go with employee number. So employee number is a primary key, correct? PK, primary key, correct? Getting it, guys? So I'll write down here primary key. So primary key meaning the value should be unique, should be always unique and not null. So is it possible to have 1000 again here? No, because this employee number you mark it as primary, that meaning these values cannot be duplicated. That is called the primary key. So this primary key is also called in DynamoDB, we call it as partition key. Can you give me a second, guys, please? Sorry, guys, there was an urgent call. Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry for that. Okay, so this primary key is also called it as partition key. So you can, in DynamoDB, you can call both. Either you can call it as primary key or either you can call it as partition key. Anything is fine. But in DynamoDB language, the primary key, we call it as partition key. So do you all agree? Guys, I already told you that in DynamoDB, initially we need to create a table, no? Initially, you need to create a table with a single column, correct? Did we learn that? So in DynamoDB, initially, you need to create a table with single column, and that column should be primary key, guys. That is the only here in DynamoDB. Initially, you can create a table with a single column, and that should be a primary key. Primary key meaning that partition key. So when you go to the DynamoDB, the first thing that you should create is the table and with the single column, and that should be the primary key. And this primary key is mandatory, guys. Primary key is mandatory in DynamoDB. Okay, please tune your brains into developer mode. Okay, so to make so I'm trying my best to make you understand, even though you're not a developer, but I hope you're able to understand. So, and here, the next thing that we need to learn here is composite key. Composite key is nothing but it's a combination of partition key, plus sort key. So we know what is partition key. Now we need to understand what is sort key, guys. Okay, so listen this carefully. What is a sort key? Now tell me, guys, now there is a hard requirement. There is a very hard requirement that I need to go ahead and then add a duplicate values for my primary key. Is that possible? Is that possible to add 1000 here in general? No, because the employee number is primary key, 1000 is already there. We cannot add the 1000. But I have a hard requirement, mandate requirement. I need to go ahead and add duplicate value here. There is no other way. I need to go ahead and add it. So in that case, what you need to do is there is a way. We can do it using the concept of sort key. So the sort key meaning here, you need to identify what is the next possible primary key. What would be the next possible primary key apart from employee number? Phone number, correct? The phone number, so that phone number will be identified as a sort key. That will be a XK, sort key. Guys, so now you have identified the sort key. So the sorry, the combination of your primary key, the combination of primary key and the sort key should be unique. These two. The combination should be unique. So when you are adding any rows, you can add a duplicate value because as you have a sort key, you can have a duplicate value, but the duplicate value, the combination of your employee number and phone number should be unique. So is it possible for me to go and add 1000 here now? Yes, by adding 1000, and here you can give some name called who is here? Okay, Andre. Okay, Andres. So here, is it possible for me to go ahead and add the same number here, 9786 like this? No, this should be different. If the combination of your employee number and phone number is unique, then you can able to add a duplicate value for your primary key. That is possible using the sort key concept. Got this? Got the concept of sort key, everyone? So sort key is optional. Okay, sort key is optional, whereas PK is mandatory. So I'll write it here. If you have primary key for a single column, duplicate values allowed? Duplicate values are not allowed. If you have only primary key for a single column, guys, okay, duplicate values are not allowed. So if you have PK and SK, if you have PK plus SK, then primary key duplicate values are allowed. Make sense? So here, combination of PK plus SK should be unique. Combination of PK and SK should be unique. Is this clear till here? Getting it? So what is a primary key? Employee number, right? So this employee number is a primary key, and that employee number, we call it as hash attribute. What is that? Hash attribute. Hash attribute is nothing but the primary key of the column which you have, the column name. The primary key's column name is called it as hash attribute. So employee number, we can call it as hash attribute. Whereas phone is SK, right? Phone is sort key. And that phone sort key, we call it as range attribute. We call it as range attribute. And DynamoDB data is stored in which format? JSON format. And it supports document and then key value database. Is this clear till here, everyone? Slowly, smoothly. Guys, is this clear? Non-IT, you're also? Okay, good. So now question here. Now what I did was, guys, I went and modified Suresh to Ramesh. I have modified Suresh to Ramesh. Can you tell me in RDB, in normal RDBMS, is it possible to find out what was there before after modifying by looking it? No. If you go to the transactions and all, there you will get it. But here you need to do a lot of things there, right? But here, just in general, when you modify this using this query, change the name from Suresh to Ramesh, by seeing the table, is it possible to find out what was there before? No. So if you go and do some little bit transactions, if you go and check it, that there you can find out. But here also in DynamoDB, we have something called DynamoDB streams. What is that, Chiti? DynamoDB streams. DynamoDB streams, what it does is it's all the change log. So whatever you have modified, everything will go and sit in the DynamoDB streams. And there is also one more series called Kinesis. You can use that Kinesis streams also. So whichever is comfortable, You can both are data streams only. That meaning whatever the changes happening in the table, everything, all the changes will be stored in this DynamoDB streams. So you can also have option like what are the things that you need to store. You need to store the old value, you need to store the new value, you need to store both, etc. So how you want to have the streams to be saved, the logs, the change log, you can modify it. So everything is captured at item level. Item level changes. Right? Okay. Can we do also this? Now you have changed from Suresh to Ramesh. That change is in the change log. Guys, from this change log, is it possible for me to trigger an email using Lambda? Yes. Lambda functions can be triggered. Kinesis is one of the another service from AWS. Okay, that is also related to the data related, basically data streamings and all. It can collect a lot of data and you can stream it. And here in DynamoDB streams, you can use the native DynamoDB streams, or else you can use another service called Kinesis streams. I'm giving an additional information for you. Okay. So is it possible to trigger Lambda functions from DynamoDB streams? What is your answer? Answer is yes. Okay. And now we have here something called consistency models. Okay, guys, do you have something called also TTL? TTL meaning time to live. Let's say, for example, I set a TTL for this particular row saying that expire after 25 days. I can set a TTL value, expire after 25 days. Exactly after 25 days at a particular period of time, this will get deleted. This row will get deleted. So you have those kind of features also from DynamoDB. Consistency models. So basically, we have two types of, firstly, mainly. So guys, in DynamoDB, what we can do, we can read and then we can write, correct? We can read and we can write. Read and then write. In read, I told you there are two types of reads. What are those? ECR and then SCR. Correct. What is ECR? Eventually consistency reads. SCR meaning strongly consistency reads. So guys, eventually meaning same concept. In S3 we have learned consistency models, correct? In S3 we have learned consistency models. Yes or no? One is immediately you can read and write, right? Immediately after write you can read it, and then in next one it is like eventually. The same thing here also. ECR and SCR. ECR meaning eventually. That means it will take little bit time. Little bit time is fraction of seconds. That is default. Strongly, if you want to read it immediately, then go for strongly consistency reads. But which is the default one here in DynamoDB? This is a certification question. Which is the default consistency model in DynamoDB? And you should say it is ECR. Okay. And next here is indexes. What is that? Indexes. Guys, since our childhood, we have learned this. What is index? Why do we need index? If you take an example of book, as your teacher always says, if you take a book, what is the first page contain? Index only, right? What is that used for? And if you want to go for particular chapter or particular page, what you do? You go to the index, you see the chapter and the page number, and directly you go to that. So you can read the data faster. Same here in the database. You have so much of data inside it. If you don't have index page, or if you don't have index, can you retrieve the data fastly? No. So this indexes, basically it helps to increase the performance, correct? It helps to increase the performance of the table or retrieving the data. Okay. So basically there are two types of indexes. One is called LSI. You call it as local secondary index. Okay. So if you want to retrieve the data from the index, that means you need to mention the columns, right? So here partition key should be mandatory, plus you can have any column as sort key. It is a combination that you should follow. Whereas there is another one called as GSI, which is called Global Secondary Index, where here mandatory, there is no concept of mandatory. You can have any column as PK while retrieving the data and any column as SK while retrieving the data. Guys, this is the LSI and GSI. If you want to retrieve the data, go with the LSI, but the only difference between both
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Okay. So LSI, the main difference between LSI and GSI is LSI can be created only at the time of creating a table, guys. You cannot modify later. You cannot modify, delete, nothing you can do. So LSI can be created only at the time of creating DynamoDB table. DB table. Later, you cannot modify or delete it. That is the LSI feature, whereas GSI can be created, modified, and delete anytime. So guys, this will be done by the developers. If you want to retrieve the data, they can create the index. While creating the index, they need to they need to use the columns, right? So mandatory, if they are going for LSI, mandatory they should use partition key and any column as a sort key. In GSI, they can go with any column as a primary key, any column as a sort key. Okay. And remember, we discussed about push button scaling in the starting of the class. DynamoDB offers push button scaling, correct? How do we do this push button scaling? Using the concept of provisioned capacity units. So we have something called read capacity units and write capacity units. In shortcut, you can call it as RCU and WCU. Write down these two words, RCU and WCU. Very important. RCU and WCU. Read capacity units, write capacity units. So for every DynamoDB table, guys, for every DynamoDB table, read capacity units and write capacity units are important. So based on the number that you have given, read capacity units, the performance will be up to that level. So remember, AWS will give you 5 RCU and 5 WCU by default. For a table, What is the default WCS and RCUs that AWS will provide? How many? 5. You can think of, sir, only 5 are. Then I'll say you, one RCU can do the work of 5.2 million reads. One RCU. And one WCU is almost 2.5 million writes. Guys, one RCU itself, it will take 5.2 million reads. Just imagine AWS is giving 5 RCUs, 5 WCUs by default. It's up to you whether you want to change it or not. And the question for you is, sir, how do we identify how many RCUs we need, how many WCU we need? Correct? Guys, how do I identify for my table how many RCUs I need, how many WCUs I need? Are you with me? Okay. So should we do some small math? Should we do some small maths here? Okay. So guys, in RCU, we have two types, ECR and FCR, correct? Okay. Now what we do is, let's have some small fun math. What we do is, I'll give you one formula, and we based on that formula, we'll try to find out how many WCUs and how many RCUs we need. Should we do that? Generally, you don't get it in associate, but in professional, sometimes you get it. So this is the formula. Please remember this. So in read capacity units, we have ECR and SCR. For ECR, we have one formula, which is called 1 RCU is equal to 2 reads per second for 4 KB size. Guys, please understand this formula. For SCR, 1 RCU is equal to only 1 read per second for 4 KB size. I think this one you can easily remember. But whereas in here, 1 WC is equal to only 1 write per second for 1 KB size. Okay, now can you please repeat it here? Guys, what is the formula for ECR? 1 RC is equal to how many reads per second? One for ECR, 1 RC is equal to how many reads per second? 2 reads per second, correct? Everyone? So for reads, what is the size we have? For reads, what is the size we have? 4 KB. It will read every 4 KB. Okay. And again, guys, for ECR, 1 RC is equal to how many reads per second? 1 ECR, 1 RCU is equal to how many reads per second? For SCR, 1 RCU is equal to 1 read per second. So for reads, how many size? What is our size? 4 KB. Okay, 1 WC is equal to how many writes per second? Okay. Guys, I'm asking the formula again. For ECR, 1 RC is equal to how many reads per second? ECR 2, SCR 1. Okay. And what is the size in the write capacity units? WCU? 1 KB itself. Do you remember these formulas? Should we do some small, sometimes you will get in certifications, they'll ask you this type of questions. So I'll try to. Okay. Yeah. See, there you will have the questions like this. See here, if you have a table and you want to read 100 items per second, how many items he's asking in the question? How many 100 items? What you want to do, read or write? Read. You want to read 100 items per second. with strongly consistency reads. ECR or SCR? SCR. And your item sizes, your items are 8 KB in size. What is our size? 4. So how do you calculate this SCR? So the calculation is simple. Guys, what is the size that he's asking in the question? 8. So 8 divided by our size, because it is reads, right? 8 divided by 4. The first thing what you need to say is shortcut, how much size that is asking and how much size we have. Is it writes or writes is asking. Now you confirm it is reads. 8 divided by 4, 2. 2 into how many reads that you want to do per second? 100. 2 into 100? 200. Divided by, he is asking SCR or ECR? SCR meaning how many reads per second? So 200 divided by 1 is 200. If you want to have SCR, ECR, 200 divided by 2, how much? 100. So if it is SCR, it is 200 read capacity units in it. And if it is ECR, you need to have 100 read capacity units in it. You understood? For write, same thing. I'll directly jump it. What is the size that he's asking in the question? What is our size in write? 4 divided by 1. 4 into how many writes he's asking per second? 4 into 50? 200. Divided by what is 1 WC is equal to how many writes per second? 1. So 200 write capacity units. Understood? Shortcuts, how do you get it? So first see the size divided by our size. Whatever that you get the answer into how much items that he's asking, divided by ECR or SCR. So now I'll ask you to do little bit more math. Okay. Now the question is this for you. Because the question here is, I want the entire equation. Don't put only the answer, put the entire solution, entire the equation. Okay. 10 strongly consistency reads per second of 4 KB each. Can you solve this? Put the entire solution. See the size divided by our size and into how much is asking divided by SCR or ECR. That is your answer. Tell me what is the answer for that. Put the entire equation, no? So what is your answer? 10, huh? Fantastic. 10 RCUs. Very good. Okay, next this one. That is ECR. Super. Answer is 24. Very good. And next one here you have, guys, is it possible to have 6 KB? You need to round out to the next possible thing. So consider that as 8 KB. and tell me the answer. 6 KB you need round off for 8. What's the answer? 20. Guys, understood? You're comfortable if you get this kind of questions? Clear? Yeah. So, and you have searching, scan versus searching. So let's say you have 1 million rows. Is it recommended to give select star from table? No. If you do that, lots of read capacity units, your RCUs will be get charged. So it is not always good to go and do the scan all the time. Scan meaning it's almost select star from table. So always go with the search. It's always good. Okay. By giving the primary key or giving some column names and all. So the rest, everything we have seen. To write the data, all these are all API calls, put item, update item. From the code, they will use these API calls. That's quite normal. Guys, everyone understood on the DynamoDB in the easiest way? Mm. So what I do is, to make you even feel better, I'll do the practicals on DynamoDB. What we do is, we'll try to create a table, we'll try to put some items there and try to work with primary key, try to work with the sort key. As we don't have time, we'll take it up tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll do the DynamoDB practicals. Okay? Make sense? Any questions, guys? So tomorrow we'll do this DynamoDB practicals. And remind me, we have learned CloudFront also, but I'll show you the CloudFront, the console also. How do we create the CloudFront? Okay, so that it will be easy for you. And then we'll be with Route 53 and VPC, two major and important topics. That will be the leftover topics that we'll do this week. Okay. Please take the screenshot. Most of the clients uses, it's depend on the requirements. We cannot really say which clients and all. If they want to have huge data and they want to have a really fast, then they'll go with NoSQL. Cloud formations, we don't, because that required coding and all. So people don't feel comfortable, but I'll share few things for you. Okay, Andre. Sir, how can we launch EC2 instance from the Linux directly without opening the AWS console with launch? So can someone answer that? From Linux, how can he launch an EC2 instance without opening? He's not asking connecting. How can you launch EC2 instance from Linux? AWS CLI is the answer. Yes. ECR only. Rohit. Okay. Did you do the screenshot? Lambda, we covered it, no, in the CloudWatch. We created a Python topic, Python code and all. You can take few examples, Prakash, and you can again try to build up on it. Guys, we covered Lambda, no? We created Lambda functions with Python code. Yeah. Super. Can you give the final CC for today?